Dan took the whole day off of work to come here and inspire us with some ways that he turned an $800 million business into a $3 billion business leveraging AI. You got to bring some more thunder. Thank you.
My hype man. And it was actually 4.3 billion. But, all right. Let's see. Sorry, I made my slides a little bit fancy. It might take a minute to load up. Beautiful.ai, actually.
So since this is the only way for me to communicate with them, they're actually loaded in the other tab, ready to go, and we don't have to worry about them not working, so you might want to do that, but please make them full screen.
No worries. All right, so we are at an amazing time in the technological revolution. We are likely going to see the first one-person billion-dollar company sometime in our lifetimes. We have, for the first time in decades, started renewing conversations about nuclear power. We're using 6 times more energy in these 10 years, and look at that growth. It's insane. More energy usage than the entire country of Mexico are going to our data centers. And just earlier this year at UC San Diego, they actually conducted the Turing test with GPT-4.5, and they actually found that 73% of the human judges believed that GPT-4.5 was human. That's opposed to 63% of the judges feeling that actual humans were human. And so naturally, I decided to spend years of my life helping people to collect little pieces of cardboard with pictures of men and cartoon animals on them. But the fun fact is, the card that I'm holding is actually worth, once graded by our company, more than $1 million. Just a month ago, a copy of this sold for $1.02 million, and there are only 35 copies in existence at that grade. And they're actually higher grades too, so some are worth more. So what exactly is it that the company does? This will set up a lot of context for the innovations that we're able to apply. So our mission is to actually inspire the world to collect by making it safe, easy, and fun. The company itself was very old, actually. It started in 1986, started in coins, tells you how old it is. Also diamond authentication and stamp collecting. They quickly got rid of the diamond authentication, stamp collecting, just focused on coins. In 1991, they added cards, and by 99, they were doing so well that they went public. So things were going well at a linear pace, but then the pandemic happened, and everyone was stuck at home. People had a lot of disposable income. The sports network shut down, and so everyone started pouring money into collectibles, to the point where the local post office actually shut down in Santa Ana, where the headquarters of Collectors is. And they made us rent school buses to funnel all the packages from the USPS to our warehouse so that they could open up and handle real mail again. So this created an opportunity in 2021 for my CEO, Nat Turner, who was previously the CEO of Flatiron Health, to actually partner up with Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, and a few other investors, and actually go in and acquire the company to bring it from public to private, so that we could start rebuilding the technology to handle this sudden surge of demand. And that's where I came in. They had me come in to reimagine the technical foundation, and I'd like to share a little bit about the story of how we went ahead and did that. So collectibles are based on their rarity, right? That's what makes it valuable. That's what helps to determine what the price of it will be. So take this Pokemon card. We have a 10-point grading scale from PSA 1 to PSA 10. PSA 10 is gem mint, perfect condition, no flaws. You can see the step difference in what a PSA 10 goes for versus a PSA 9. And then from PSA 9 to PSA 8, the interesting thing there is that there are actually more PSA 9s than PSA 8. So this even shows that the laws of economics don't really apply in collectibles, especially with grading and the condition grades, because the collector puts so much weight on the the grade that we give it, the condition that's in. And so it's very important what our judgment of the condition of these collectibles is. So getting more into the grading process, it helps you understand the opportunities that we had to actually help it to scale and apply AI and machine learning. Here you can see a little more of the manual process that exists, a bit of a dramatization. It's actually much more assembly line than this. So here is an iconic card, the 1986 Fleer Michael Jordan rookie card. It's valued at around $280,000 right now at a PSA 10. Even at the lowest grade, just us saying that's authentic, it's over $2,400. One of these is fake. Can you tell which one? So there are a few tells. Our graders actually spend years training artisan style to understand the differences of how to grade the condition, how to find these counterfeits. There are a few tells. This is one of them. So if you look at the dots in that little arrow, you can see that on the left, there are dots. On the right, there are not. The right one is the counterfeit. Now, this is an older counterfeit. So by now, all the counterfeiters have adopted better printing technology. They are now building better counterfeits. And so this is no longer something that we can use to detect. But fortunately, these graders are trained to know all the other tells. But it's a hard challenge because there are anywhere between 450 and 650 billion cards that have been manufactured over time. And they have to understand the nuances of every single one in order to give a determination if it's counterfeit or not. So the whole life cycle of what happens when someone sends a card in is, well, first you obtain this collectible. You send it in, you go through our submission process online or through our mobile app, and then you have to ship it in or drop it off with us. We then receive it. We have to make sure everything is there. We research it to make sure that we understand what it is, and what you said it was is actually accurately what you said it was. We then grade the condition, encapsulate it, and then we verify that all of it looks good. We actually enclose it in this UV-protected medical-grade plastic that's sonically welded, that's using micro vibrations, not heat, so you don't damage the collectible or alter it in any way, with a seal of authenticity, the grade, and then if all that looks good, you have the option to ship it back to yourself or to a secure vault that we have where we actually have marketplace integrations. You can sell that collectible on eBay with a few clicks. You can actually just leave it there to track the value over time and try to time the market. And so that's the life cycle. And just even hearing that, you can probably imagine a lot of the opportunities for automation and a lot of AI. So let's get into some of the practices in which we do that. This is actually a machine that we custom built with a company that generally does passport authenticity checking. And we built a custom machine with automation that will allow you to scan the card and actually sonically weld it with machines and actually do the quality control all integrated so that instead of taking about 7 minutes per card, it takes about 7 seconds. But of course, as everyone's been talking about, human in the loop is still very important in today's age of AI. So it will take time for us to fully replace the humans, but we can definitely scale them. So what we're doing today is we actually capture the information about the collectible as it comes in. We then developed a whole bunch of AI ML models that can actually do various things and then give some sort of prediction or some sort of recommendation. Those results are then reviewed by our human experts, and then those responses help to train the model to be better for the next set of collectibles. Very common loop. So let's get into a few case studies. The first one here is a feature that we actually released earlier this year in our mobile app. So you can actually scan a card. One of the biggest questions we get is, oh, I inherited this collection from my grandfather. I'm in the store with my kid. What is this card? And is it valuable? How rare is it? So we wanted to build a feature where you could just scan, use our mobile app, scan the card, and it'll tell you all this information. The first approach that we took was actually the computer vision approach, where we just took the image that was being scanned by the mobile app and then compared it to our database of 35, 40 years of images to see, could we match what this collectible is? And we were surprised to see that it was actually far less than 31%. Initially, it was somewhere south of 10% of matches that were accurately assessed. And so the team got back to work. started taking a look at what we could do, and what they actually found that would increase the rate of matching was to first have an LLM look at the image and describe it in text. And then we would take that text and do very rudimentary, very common text searching across our databases and all of our metadata. And that actually yielded an 85% match rate. And so it just went to show for us that you can't just rely on the modern AI ML technologies, that you actually had to do, sometimes just go back to your roots, go back to the fundamentals of good software engineering, good design. But it actually yielded quite an amazing change in results. The second case study is around counterfeit detection. So the team actually developed a bit of automation around some of the things I was talking about earlier. And they found that they could create a model that would detect 94% of the counterfeits going through, which is great. You just flag it. For the ones that are missed, you're still going through a human authenticator grader anyway, but at least 94% of the time, you're pre-marking it, pre-labeling it as a counterfeit, saving them a bit of time. And 16% of the time, the counterfeits that it was marking were actually authentic cards, but that's a pretty low rate. So we shipped it into operations. We were very excited to see what the reaction was, and people revolted. And the reason being is because that 16% actually slowed them down enough where the throughput took a major hit. And so they graded fewer cards per day, and they are compensated based on their volume of cards. So immediately we had to turn off the feature and pull it out and go back to the drawing board. And not only that, we had to build up goodwill again with them to trust the technology that we're going to put out next. And so it actually set us back by a year. But just to show, even if we have a good technological solution, you can't really roll it out in most cases nowadays very easily to the workforce. It was very low. I think it was something like less than 1%. Yeah, that was one of the metrics we were looking at. We weren't anticipating that the false positives would have such a major impact. So the last case study I have here is around the estimated value. So once you know what the card is, the next obvious question is, so what is it worth? So we actually have two models that work here. One is called Card Ladder. It's a statistical model using just general financial equations and formulas. It uses the last sale of a card and weighs heavily on that. It requires actual sales data and comparables in order to determine the value. The PSA estimate was something we developed after acquiring Card Ladder, which was a startup, to try to attempt to build a machine learning model that could predict what the price of a card may be based on multiple variables, some of which we knew and some of which the machine learning would just figure it out on its own. And so the benefit of that is that it could actually tell you with a high degree of scientific truth and confidence what the value of a card should be and will be, and actually show you how it got there. The problem is, and if you look at the values, they're actually pretty similar, and the range for the estimate and the confidence level is pretty similar. This is actually a card from my collection that I got for like $50, and luckily it went up in value quite a lot. But the problem is that people don't trust the PSA estimate. For the Card Ladder estimate, they could look at a last sale value and they say, well, there's a sale here for this exact value. For the PSA estimate, there are no sales. So it became almost like the Zillow Z estimate, where people are like, okay, like that's a number, feels directionally correct, but I don't trust it. This one has an actual sale tied to it. I'm gonna go with this one. But we have scientifically shown with subsequent studies that we are within a 3 to 5% in both directions degree of accuracy with Card Ladder. And we actually can predict prices of things that are on auction, of what they'll end at before they end, where Card Ladder can't. People still don't trust it. So we still have this barrier to entry in being able to put out some of this AI for consumer use as well. Yeah, no, so I mean, it's a good idea, but being part of the company, I don't think I'm allowed to game the system in that way. The last interesting thing that's good to look at is how are we actually applying corporate AI tools within the workforce? How are we actually making it so that we are helping our employees to be better, faster, more efficient? So we use a few corporate AI tools. We actually have been told by all these companies that we are one of the few companies at our scale that experiment as wildly as we do. We are at any given point talking to 15 to 25 startups, different AI firms, and just helping them with their POCs, helping them to determine the product market fit. But because we actually have a pretty sophisticated employee base who is willing to experiment with these tools, and we actually work with them to figure out how to right-size these experiments. So Glean is one such tool. If you hadn't heard of it, it actually takes a whole bunch of different data sources across your entire enterprise and brings them together so you could ask open-ended questions. And that's really cool because you can have your direct messaging with your email, with your Confluence and internal wiki pages, and literally everything, Google Drive, and just ask open-ended questions like, what was our ASV last month? How many sales did we do, et cetera, et cetera. Very powerful tool. So it's expensive, so we don't really give it out to everyone, just kind of with the more corporate-y type employees. Pretty good adoption rate, and a lot of them do use it to actually look for stuff in Google Drive, which is kind of funny to me because Google's a search company and Glean's better at doing searching than Google Drive, but that's a different topic for a different time. And so they try to estimate, based on all of the data they see around how many people are clicking through and how much time they're saving, how much value we're getting from their platform. And this is what all AI companies are trying to do, right? Justify the cost of this magic platform that's supposed to make things better, but you can't really measure it. So they're trying to measure it. They're saying we save about 5 minutes per employee, which saves us around $328,000 based on a year, based on the number of employees we have using it. Their website actually touts that they'll save you 110 hours per employee per year. They actually measure this for each company, including us. We actually see something like 24 hours, even though they're saying 110 on the website, and I think that's overshooting it. I think we're actually seeing something more like 15. But so it just goes to show, as much as these tools may be helpful, at least I guess it's paying for itself, so we'll continue to use it, but it's actually hard to determine the value that this is providing for us. And speaking of hard to determine the value of what's providing to us, Google Gemini. So this is something that was free because they included it with our Google Workspace licenses, probably because they need to inflate their numbers of how many people are using it. And still, only 31% of our workforce is using it. They have 0 ways of measuring how effective it is. They're not even trying because they know. And so, people are using it to summarize content. I have seen some interesting use cases where they actually, like our finance team, they'll open up a spreadsheet and then they'll just start asking open-ended questions from like a closing report or a financial statement. And so instead of digging into all these lines and building all these formulas, it does a pretty good job actually of answering questions there. That's about the limit of it. Some people actually are using the Gemini app too instead of ChatGPT because we actually don't give all of our employees ChatGPT. We have thousands of employees. We can't afford really at scale to use it given how much they would actually use it. But Gemini is free and included, and people are using that, and it's actually not too bad. And the last thing that we actually use it for, and probably the best thing we use it for, is actually to help the software engineers with their coding. So this chart actually comes from a platform called workweave.dev. It's the only platform I found so far that actually does a good job of measuring the productivity you get out of using AI coding tools. And there are little icons there, they're hard to see, but we use 3 or 4 different AI coding platforms, some of which we're experimenting with, some of which we are now using permanently. This graph is showing over the past year the use of these tools and how many lines of code are either generated or modified through AI. And so you can see that little line, that is how many lines are added or modified. The green bar is what's called KTLO, keep the lights on. And so maintenance, like how much is just, how much code is actually just to keep things running. The orange bar is number of bug fixes we have to do, so number of bugs we release and have to fix. And the great thing about this chart, and what's showing, is that the maintenance effort and the number of bugs we're releasing stay pretty much consistent. Even though we're using these AI tools and it's growing over time, the thing that grows the most, the number of features we're shipping, the number of things we're actually providing value to customers with. And so the other interesting metric there is that 5% of our code turns over. That means within 3 months, something that you submitted as a change gets overwritten. Prior to using these tools, that number was at 8%. Now it's gone down to 5%, which means that we're releasing more code that actually stays out there longer and is good, solid code. And so Weave actually tries to also estimate how much money they're saving us. We have about 148 full-time engineers using this, 260 business days they've used it for. We have about 2% of our code base that's actually written by AI. And they're using a placeholder of $100 an hour. And it's saying that we actually have about $1.29 million worth of value that's generated. This number, I believe. So finally, what's the impact of all these changes? So our valuation at acquisition, bringing it from public to private, was $850 million. 14 months later, the valuation was driven up to $4.3 billion. And that was back in 2022. Not going to tell you the valuation now. That's a heavily kept secret. But it's a lot due to the changes that we made, both in terms of the technology and operationally. Our mobile app performance, we've been slowly releasing changes, more submissions, more items entered correctly, which saves us time on the operation side of things, and more people just using it to scan collectibles, which are new customers that we are potentially going to acquire and convert. And that's gone up a tremendous amount. Finally, Gemini, yeah, I still have no clue what they're saving us or what it's worth. But the truth is, yes, the technology is imperfect today. No, it doesn't solve the problem just by dragging it, dropping it, trying to put it and apply it to a problem. But the thing is, this room right here, this group of people, we're the innovators, we're the entrepreneurs. We're the ones that are going to pioneer how to use this technology, find the problems where it makes sense, and slowly, as the theme has gone today, iterate and figure out the best way to move forward. So what I encourage all of you to do is find the problems in your space and then lead forth bravely. Let's build the future together. Thank you.